Good morning, dear students. Welcome to the distance learning organized by the education authorities. I'm Mr. Sidibe, a teacher of English from Kergumak Junior High School. Today's lesson is about the active and passive voice. And this lesson is done collaboratively with Mr. Mbanyik Job, a teacher of English from Scientific High School. This lesson will help students to identify the active and passive voice and understand when and how it is used. Now we are living with a coronavirus pandemic. That is why we based all our activities on this relevant topic. Get ready? Now let's start. Okay, now look at this picture. Mbanyik, what can you see in this picture? You see a doctor and a COVID-19 patient. Now let's describe the image starting with the doctor. Example of sentence. Example of sentence. The doctor treats the COVID-19 patient. The doctor treats the COVID-19 patient. Now let's describe again the picture, starting with the COVID-19 patient. Astu, can you make a sentence starting with the COVID-19 patient? Example, the COVID-19 patient is treated by the doctor. Now let's compare the two sentences. Sentence number one. Identifies the sentence number one. Is the sentence number one in passive voice or active voice? Mbanyik? Okay. The sentence number one is in active voice. Why? Because the subject, doctor, does the action of the verb. And the sentence number two is in the passive voice. Why? Because the subject is not doing the action, but the subject receives the action of the verb. Meaning, the COVID-19 patient does not treat himself, but he is treated by a doctor. So when we compare the two sentences, we see that in the first sentence, the doctor does the action of the verb, and in the second sentence, the doctor becomes the agent, and the object becomes the subject. Here we have inverted the subject and the object. Now let's move to the second part. The form of the passive voice. Okay, here, active voice, the doctor treats the COVID patient because the doctor does the action of the verb. Passive voice, the subject receives the action of the verb. The COVID-19 patient does not treat himself, he is treated by a doctor. Now, how to form a passive voice sentence? Passive voice sentence is formed by putting the verb to be plus the past participle of the verb. Notice that the past participle never changes. We have to maintain the past participle. But the verb to be can change according to the tense of the active verb. Example, Nabu, can you make a sentence, a passive sentence using the simple past? Okay. Yes, I'm going to ask Amadou, for instance, to make an example of sentence starting with the present perfect. Okay. Can you show me the examples, please? Okay, passive voice can be used in different tenses, like present perfect, future, futurate, and even with modals. Okay, now I ask the students to make some sentence in different tenses. Present perfect, Amadou say the COVID-19 has been discovered in China. So if the students is familiar with the tenses, it would be easy to change an active sentence into passive sentence. Emily says the COVID-19 patient will be treated in the coming days. Here we have a passive voice sentence in the future. Passive voice sentence in the future. You have will plus be plus the past participle. The past participle never change. Picture it. CD says the COVID-19 was discovered in Senegal in March, the 2nd of March, 2020. Here the verb to be have to change in the simple past. And the past participle never change. Discovered. Models, which can either say the COVID-19 can be treated in the country. Can is a models. We have here can plus be plus the past participle. Now let's move to the other part. When do we use passive voice? Here. Passive voice is used when the actor is unknown or when the actor is not important. Sometimes when you look at the headlines of newspapers or magazines, you will see that the title headlines are written in passive voice. We use also passive voice when the action is more important than the agent. The agent means the person who does the action. Passive voice is often preferred in lab reports and scientific research. We also use passive voice whenever we want to emphasize the agent, meaning the person who does the action. Whenever we want to put an emphasis on this agent, we sometimes use passive voice. Okay, now let's move to the individual activities. Now here, I ask the students to apply what they have learned from these lessons to change the active sentences into passive sentences. Examples. Practice. Turn these sentences into passive voice. Doctors identify a new disease in December 2019. A new virus of the coronavirus family causes the disease. The World Health Organization considered it a pandemic on March 11, 2020. A medical professional can diagnose the symptoms. They will keep a suspected person in quarantine. Health professionals are developing vaccine at the moment. Okay, now you have just 5 minutes to change these sentences into passive voice. Activity number 1. Just 5 minutes to change all these sentences into passive voice. Now let's move to the expected answer. Expectations. Sentence number 1. A new disease was identified in December 2019. Here we have a passive voice sentence in the simple past. You have the verb to be changed. The verb to be is conjugated in the simple past, but the past participle never changes. We maintain the past participle of the active verb here. Second, number 2, the disease is caused by the coronavirus family. Here, the sentence is in a passive voice, simple present simple. Sentence number 2, it was considered a pandemic on March 11th, 2020 by the World Health Organization. Sentence number 4, the symptoms can be diagnosed by a medical professional. Models, you have here a models in the passive voice, models, can plus be plus past participle. So whenever you have models such as can, must, may, should, you have to write first the models plus be plus the past participle. Can be, must be, should be. Sentence number 5. A suspected person will be kept in quarantine. Future. We have here a future sentence in the passive voice. Will be. Kept is the past participle of the verb keep. So I asked the students also to try to memorize some irregular verbs, because the irregular verbs change in the past participle. They change. Sentence number 6, vaccines are being developed by health professionals at the moment. Here we have a passive voice sentence in the present continuous. Whenever you have a present continuous, you have is, are, plus being, plus the past participle. Okay, so let's move to the next activity. Communication practice. A journalist is interviewing a sociologist, Ali Huja Njai, on the impact of the COVID-19 on the social relationship in the Senegalese society. Now complete the conversation below. And this is the situation. Now we have to complete the conversation meaningfully by putting the verb in the passive voice. Okay. Just, you have 10 minutes to complete this activity. I ask the students to complete the conversation meaningfully using the verb between brackets in the passive voice. Get ready? Are you ready? Now let's move to the expected answers. Okay. Here we have, is your health being menaced by the COVID-19? Present continuous here. Here also we have present perfect, mechanized. Has been mechanized here, present perfect. Whenever you want to put a sentence, a verb in the passive voice using present perfect, you have been or has been plus past participle. Has been or have been plus participle. Not at all. At the beginning, some people were arrested or have been arrested by the police officers because they refused to obey the curfew. Passive voice in the simple past. You have was or were plus the past participle. Or passive voice in the present perfect also. We have been or has been plus past participle. Present perfect. So if the students are familiar with the verb tenses, it won't be difficult to do this activity. They are running the risk of being contaminated, of being at the moment. Present continuous. In the passive voice, being plus past participle. Mask should be worn when going to the market or public places. Where is an irregular verb. As a while ago, I asked the student to try to memorize some irregular verbs. There is a list of irregular verbs because here, where is not a regular verb. It is an irregular verb, that is why the form changed. It's changed. Here we have is, were. Okay, to summarize, active sentence, the difference between active sentence and passive sentence is that in the active sentence, the subject does the action of the verb. Example, the doctor treated a COVID-19 patient. But in the passive sentence, the subject is not doing actively the action, but the subject receives the action of the verb. Example, a COVID-19 patient is treated by the doctor. Because a COVID-19 patient does not treat himself, he is treated. Okay. And the subject becomes the agent and the object becomes the subject. We have to invert them. They change their places. Okay. Now, homework, because I want the students to do some activities once at home, because we are talking about distance learning solution. Homework. Identify the passive and the active voice sentences. Here, look at this text. Look at the text, a short text. It is a short text, and you are going to identify the sentence which are in active voice and the sentence which are in passive voice. Here, it's homework. Okay, is there another activity? Okay, now. We are still in homework. Listen to the audio and turn the sentences into passive voice. Homework. I thought that my car had been broken into. Wow. In this activity, I want the students to rewrite this sentence starting in the passive voice, starting with the underlined words. In each sentence, there are some words that are underlined. And when you change this sentence into passive voice, I would like you to start with the underlined words. Okay, thank you for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye. Thank you so much.